Hey everyone, welcome back to Visions Beyond. Ready to dive deep into a link you might not expect? We're talking NAFLD and diabetes.
Sounds interesting.
But first, a quick reminder to hit that like button, share this deep dive with your friends, and subscribe to Visions Beyond. So you don't miss out on future deep dives.
Right. Always good to stay informed.
Oh, and don't forget to leave a comment. We love hearing your thoughts. All right, let's jump in. For this deep dive, we're pulling from 3 sources.
Okay.
We've got a press release from the American Diabetes Association. They released some updated guidelines on NAFLD and diabetes back in June.
Uh-huh.
And then we have 2 articles.
Great.
One from Hepatobiliary Surgery and Nutrition. It's called Fatty Liver Disease in Diabetes Mellitus. That's from 2015.
Gotcha.
And then another one from Metabolism, Non-Alcoholic Fatty Liver Disease and Diabetes. That's from 2016.
All right, covering all the bases.
So just a quick refresher for everyone. NAFLD stands for Non-Alcoholic Fatty Liver Disease.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
It's, well, kind of what it sounds like.
Uh-huh.
You get a buildup of fat in the liver.
Right.
But the tricky thing is, it can be pretty sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
Often, no symptoms, especially early on.
Oh.
And it can range from simple steatosis, that's a milder form,
Okay.
to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which is more serious because you got inflammation and potential liver damage with that.
So it's a spectrum.
Yeah, it's not just one size fits all. So the big question for this deep dive is, are NAFLD and diabetes just coincidental?
Interesting question.
Or are they more like partners in crime,
Yeah.
Like, is there some kind of connection linking them together?
Well, I think the interesting thing is that the research suggests it's a bit of a two-way street.
Oh.
These 2 conditions can actually influence each other
Ah.
and create kind of a vicious cycle.
So it's not just one causing the other.
No, it's not that simple. It's more complex than that.
More like a tangled web.
Exactly. It's like they're in a tango,
Leading and following.
Each one leading and following at different times.
Okay, I like that analogy. Yeah. So let's break down those steps then. How does diabetes increase the risk of NAFD?
Oh, you have to think about insulin resistance. It's a key player in type 2 diabetes. Your cells basically become less responsive to insulin.
Right, less receptive.
And that means your blood sugar levels start to rise.
Makes sense.
And here's the kicker. That same insulin resistance also encourages your liver to store more fat.
Oh, interesting.
Which, of course, contributes to NAFLD. It's like insulin resistance is setting the stage for both conditions.
Laying the groundwork.
Exactly.
And one of the articles, it actually mentioned a pretty startling statistic. Up to 70% of people with type 2 diabetes might also have NAFLD.
Yeah, that's a huge overlap. It really highlights how strong the connection is. And that American Diabetes Association press release, they actually said liver disease is now being recognized as a major complication of diabetes.
Wow.
It's a wake-up call, for sure.
Yeah, definitely eye-opening. So we've got diabetes increasing the risk of NAFLD, but can it go the other way around?
That's the question, isn't it?
Can NAFLD increase your risk of developing type 2 diabetes?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Because, yes, NAFLD can increase your chances of developing type 2 diabetes. Think about it. When your liver isn't functioning at its best because of that fat buildup,
Right.
it throws off the balance of hormones and can trigger inflammation. And guess what? Both of those things can actually worsen insulin resistance,
Oh, wow.
making it even harder for your body to regulate blood sugar. It's like a domino effect.
So we're talking about a real two-way street here.
Yeah.
These conditions can make each other worse.
Exactly. And what makes it even more concerning is the silent nature of NAFLD.
Yeah, we've touched on that.
It often doesn't cause noticeable symptoms in the early stages, which means diagnosis and treatment can be delayed. So by the time people realize something's wrong, the condition might have already progressed. That's why understanding your risk factors and being proactive about your health is crucial.
Okay, so let's talk about those risk factors then.
Sure.
What should listeners be looking out for?
Well, we've already touched on obesity and insulin resistance. Those are major players.
Right.
And of course, metabolic syndrome, that's the cluster of conditions, including high blood pressure, high triglycerides, and abdominal obesity. It's a big red flag.
Definitely.
It significantly increases your risk for both diabetes and NAFLD.
Almost like they share a common risk profile.
It's almost like that, yeah.
Makes sense.
And we can't forget about family history. If you have close relatives with NAFLD or diabetes, your chances are higher.
So genes play a role too.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm curious about how an NAFLD actually progresses. How does it go from that milder form to the more serious one? Is it gradual?
It's definitely a spectrum. One of the articles actually describes it as a continuum. It starts with simple steatosis, where fat accumulates in the liver, but there's not much damage yet.
Okay.
Think of it like your liver storage unit getting cluttered.
I like that.
But as things progress, it can develop into NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. That's where the inflammation and cell damage come in.
Oh, so it's getting worse.
Yeah. Like that clutter in the liver storage unit is now causing real problems.
I see.
And NASH can lead to scarring of the liver, also known as cirrhosis.
And cirrhosis, that's serious.
It's very serious. Cirrhosis can eventually lead to liver failure and even liver cancer. It's like that clutter in the liver storage unit has become a full-blown disaster.
Not good.
Not good at all.
So that progression, it does sound pretty scary.
It is concerning.
I have to wonder, does having diabetes make it more likely that NAFLD will progress to those more serious stages?
Sadly, yes.
Oh, no.
People with diabetes are definitely more likely to develop the more severe forms of an AFLD.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the risk. It seems diabetes can also speed up the progression of the disease, like it's throwing gasoline on the fire.
So it's making a bad situation worse.
Exactly.
The Metabolism article mentioned a study where individuals with moderate to severe liver fibrosis, they are more likely to have diabetes. That really kind of drives home the connection.
It does. It really shows that it's not just diabetes increasing the risk of NAFLD. It seems to make the disease more aggressive, too.
A double whammy.
It really is.
So we've established that NAFLD and diabetes they're intertwined.
Yes.
They increase each other's risk and severity.
Definitely.
This is pretty heavy stuff. But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Talk about what our listeners can do about it. Are there ways to manage these conditions?
Well, the good news is lifestyle modifications can have a huge impact on both conditions.
Oh, it's good to hear.
It's really about addressing those shared risk factors we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Making changes to your lifestyle, you can essentially hit two birds with one stone.
I like that. Efficient.
You can manage both NAFLD and diabetes at the same time.
So let's break that down a bit. What are some practical steps listeners can take to manage their NAFLD and diabetes?
Well, first and foremost, weight management is key. Even losing a small amount of weight can make a world of difference.
Really?
We're talking about 5 to 10% of your body weight. It doesn't have to be drastic, but it can have a huge impact on both your liver health and blood sugar control. Think of it like decluttering that liver storage unit and giving those insulin receptors a chance to breathe.
It's all about making space.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing diet plays a role too, right?
Absolutely. The hepatobiliary surgery and nutrition article really emphasizes that.
Okay, what does it say?
They recommend focusing on whole foods, lean proteins, fruits, vegetables, and limiting processed foods, sugary drinks, and unhealthy fats.
Right, the usual suspects.
It's the same advice you hear for overall good health, but it's especially important for people managing NAFLD and diabetes.
It sounds like a lot of these recommendations, they're things we should all be doing anyway, right?
Yeah, you got it. These lifestyle changes are beneficial for everyone, but they're particularly important for people at risk or already diagnosed with NAFLD and diabetes. They can slow down disease progression, improve symptoms, and reduce the risk of complications.
So it's like investing in your future health.
Exactly.
Taking care of your liver and managing blood sugar can reduce the risk of so many chronic diseases.
Absolutely. It's about taking a proactive approach to your health.
And for people who already have diabetes, managing those blood sugar levels is critical too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Medications can play a role in that, but it's crucial to work closely with your doctor to make sure your treatment plan is tailored to you.
Makes sense. Speaking of medications, are there any specifically for NAFLD?
That's an area of active research, actually. And we'll dive into that a bit more in the next part of our deep dive. But for now, let's focus on those lifestyle changes because they are really the foundation for managing both NAFLD and diabetes.
Okay, back to the basics.
The foundation is key.
This has been a fascinating look into the connection between NAFLD and diabetes.
It really is a fascinating area.
It's amazing how intertwined they are, influencing each other in this complex dance.
They really do have this intricate relationship.
But the good news is, by understanding the risks and taking proactive steps, we can make a real difference in managing both conditions.
Absolutely.
And improving our overall health.
Couldn't agree more. You know, as we dig deeper into the research, it's clear that managing NAFD and diabetes isn't just about lifestyle changes. There's another layer, medications. Especially those used for diabetes, they might actually be influencing NAFLD.
Okay, now I'm really curious. Let's talk meds. Which ones are we talking about, and what kind of impact are they having?
Well, one that pops up a lot in the research is metformin. It's often the go-to for type 2 diabetes. It's known for reducing how much glucose the liver produces,
No.
while also increasing glucose uptake in the muscles.
Right. Makes sense for diabetes management. But does it actually do anything for the fatty liver itself?
That's where things get a little, well, less clear. Some smaller studies have shown some improvement in liver enzyme levels with metformin.
Okay.
But larger analyses haven't really found a big improvement in liver histology,
Histology.
meaning the actual structure of the liver. So metformin might not be a magic bullet for NAFLD.
Got it. What about other diabetes medications? Any of them show promise?
This is where things get interesting. The research also mentions thiazolidinedinones, or TZDs.
ZZDs, okay.
These meds work by improving insulin sensitivity.
Right.
And there's some evidence that suggests they could have benefits for NAFLD too.
So they're tackling that insulin resistance we talked about,
Exactly.
which could then help the liver.
That's the idea. However, that metabolism article, it did highlight that TZDs, they're not without side effects. You're talking about fluid retention, weight gain, and even a possible link to bladder cancer.
Oh.
So it's not a decision to be taken lightly. It's really about weighing those benefits and risks carefully with your doctor.
Definitely. Medications are serious business.
They are.
Any other potential players in the diabetes drug lineup that might affect NAFLD?
There are a couple more worth mentioning. The research also points to GLP-1 analogs and DPP-4 inhibitors.
Okay.
Both of those actually influence the incretin system. That's the system that helps regulate blood sugar levels.
Okay, backing up a sec. For those of us who haven't been to medical school,
Yeah.
what exactly is the incretin system?
Sure. Think of it as your body's backup system for insulin. When you eat, your body releases these hormones called incretins,
Okay.
and they actually boost your own insulin production.
So it's like a team effort.
Yeah, a tag team to keep your blood sugar in check. Now, GLP-1 analogs, they work by mimicking one of these natural helpers, GLP-1,
Got it.
while DPP-4 inhibitors prevent the breakdown of those helpful incretins. So they both lead to better blood sugar control in the end.
Okay, so back to NAFLD. What kind of evidence do we have that these incretin drugs might be beneficial?
Well, there have been some studies on GLP-1 analogs showing improvements in liver enzymes and even liver histology.
Huh.
But the metabolism article, they were careful to say more research is needed.
Yeah, to really know for sure.
Exactly.
What about DPP-4 inhibitors? Any good signs there?
Kind of a similar story, actually. Some studies hint at improvements in liver enzymes and histology.
Okay.
But again, we need more research to really confirm that.
So it seems like the takeaway here is, while some diabetes medications show potential for influencing NAFLD, it's not a primary treatment yet.
Right.
More research is needed.
I agree. And it's really important for your listeners to remember that managing NAFLD and diabetes is complex. Working closely with your healthcare provider, that's crucial.
Right, personalized care.
Exactly. They can help develop a plan that's tailored to you, taking into account all the factors involved.
Couldn't agree more. Now, before we get too deep into medications, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier. The fact that NAFLD can be so stealthy. It can be happening without any obvious symptoms, which makes early detection a real challenge.
That's a big issue. The hepatobiliary surgery and nutrition article, they really stress that point. Many people with an NAFLD are asymptomatic, meaning they don't have any noticeable symptoms. And that lack of symptoms, it can lead to delayed diagnosis and treatment, so the disease progresses silently.
And to make matters worse, even routine blood tests, they might not always catch NAFLD early on.
Yeah, it's tricky.
So what can our listeners do to be proactive, especially if they're not feeling anything?
That's where awareness comes in. Understanding your risk factors is crucial. If you have any of the risk factors we've discussed, like obesity, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, or a family history of NAFLD or diabetes, it's smart to talk to your doctor about your liver. Don't wait for symptoms. Be proactive.
And I'm guessing that might involve more testing.
Probably. Imaging studies, maybe even a liver biopsy in some cases. It's all about getting a clearer picture of what's going on.
Okay, so being your own advocate.
Exactly. Early detection, it's key to preventing NAFLD from progressing to those more serious stages, like NASH and cirrhosis. The sooner you catch it, the better your chances.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. We've only just scratched the surface of this relationship between NAFLD, and diabetes.
It's a complex area.
But we've covered a lot.
We have. And it's a conversation that needs more attention, both in the medical world and among the public. The more we understand this connection, the better we can prevent, diagnose, and manage these conditions.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap things up for today, I want to make sure our listeners know we're not leaving them hanging with all this info.
Of course not.
We'll provide some resources in the show notes, links to the articles we talked about today, and more information about NAFLD and diabetes.
That's a great idea. And, we always encourage listeners to do their own research, too.
Right.
And talk to their doctors. Get that personalized guidance.
Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power.
It is.
But applying that knowledge in a way that supports your own health,
Right.
That's where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
Speaking of applying knowledge, let's bring it back to our listeners.
Okay.
Why should they care about all of this?
Yeah.
Even if they don't have diabetes or they haven't been diagnosed with NAFLD.
That's a really good question. Even if you're not personally affected right now, this information, it's relevant to everyone.
In what way?
Well, first of all, NAFLD is incredibly common.
Is it?
It's estimated to affect something like 25% of adults in the U.S.
Wow.
So chances are you probably know someone who's dealing with it.
Makes you think.
Right. And like we've talked about, it often goes undiagnosed.
Yeah.
So being aware of the risks and symptoms that can help you look out for yourself and for your loved ones.
I like that. It's about looking out for each other.
Exactly. And, beyond that, understanding the link between the NAFLD and diabetes, it really highlights how important a healthy lifestyle is for everyone.
For sure.
Those changes we talked about, weight management, a balanced diet, regular exercise.
That's the good stuff.
Those aren't just about preventing these specific conditions.
Right.
They're about promoting overall health.
Yeah. Taking care of yourself.
Exactly. It's like investing in your future health.
Right.
Taking care of your liver, managing your blood sugar. That can lower your risk for a whole bunch of chronic diseases down the road.
So many benefits.
It's true. And, let's not forget about the financial side of things, the burden of chronic diseases.
Oh, right. The healthcare costs.
Preventing those conditions can save you a ton of money in the long run.
Makes sense. So it's a win-win.
It really is. Taking care of your health also takes care of your wallet.
So true. So even if you don't have NAFLD or diabetes right now, this information is like a call to action.
It is.
To prioritize your health, to start making those positive changes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's wrap this up with a final thought for our listeners.
All right.
Given how sneaky NAFLD can be and its connection to diabetes, what steps can you take today to check your risk and start really focusing on your liver health, even if you're not experiencing any symptoms?
That's the million-dollar question. I think it comes down to being proactive, understanding your risk factors, and making healthy choices every single day.
Building those habits.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to talk to your doctor. They can really help you figure out your personal risk and guide you.
Your health is worth it.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power when it comes to your health. It's the power to live a longer, healthier, happier life.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into NAFLD and diabetes. Hope you found this helpful and empowering.
Me too.
And before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Visions Beyond, and leave a comment. We love hearing from you.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for another fascinating deep dive.